Welcome back. An organization, Kagiso Trust, have unveiled their hashtag Radical Collaboration campaign, which positions and shines the spotlight in the effective running of local government. The organization formed the Makhanda Circle of Unity model, which they say spearheaded Makhanda municipalities' turnaround, a model they hope to employ for other struggling municipalities. Kagiso Trust has been engaged in promoting citizen engagement and activism in local governance. And Paul Smith, the head of local government at Kagiso Trust, joins us via our video link for more on this conversation. Paul, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. Of course, you held a seminar as a Kagiso Trust, and this is basically calling on for citizens to engage more and to know what's taking place in their communities. In terms of this initiative, just tell us more about it and how it came about.
Good evening, Mbali. We, as Kagiso Trust, we've been supporting the interests of local government for some years, and without real impact for marginalized communities. And our Board of Trustees really challenged us to find a way to better support municipalities and local communities for greater impact. And so we set out to look for develop a model that would strengthen local governance and improve community-centric development. And this has been quite an interesting journey. As everyone knows, the gap between local government and communities has widened significantly over the last number of years. And so in embarking on this project, we selected Makhanda municipality as our pilot site. And after being there for a few months, we realized that the problems weren't issues. The real problem was the enabling environment. There was just no relationship between community and the municipality. And in fact, the civil society community and communities in general were very polarized. And in fact, they phrased themselves the circular firing squad, where everyone wanted change, but no one could agree what change and how that change can be implemented. So we set out to really try and strengthen the cohesion within civil society, and then also empower both civil society and the municipality to better collaborate and co-create the types of futures they desired. We as Kagiso understand that neither municipalities or communities can address the current socio-economic issues faced in South Africa. And so we set out to build the collaboration. The Makhanda Circle of Unity is one of these collaborative coalitions in civil society. And the next step for us is really to get government to step out of their comfort zone and become vulnerable in the community space and have some honest conversations to address some of the challenges that local communities face. And here we are.
Yeah, and bridging that gap between, municipalities and the community, how important was that for the model that you used for the Makhanda municipality?
It's really essential. I think if we don't, as communities and municipalities or government in South Africa, realize that we need to work together and collaborate around designing our futures, I think we're going to see much of the same. And I was listening to the item just before this around coalition governments, and so we must also understand that coalition governments for us in South Africa are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And the sooner we get to sorting those out to make them meaningful and impactful, the better. But in order to do that, citizens have to take back their agency as voters, as recipients of municipal services and government services, and start playing their rightful role in designing the type of development that's required. And this can be different in different localities. And so the model that's been created is quite generic. It's about the enabling environment. But what we have found, though, in both communities and municipalities, is that behavior change is not something that happens overnight. and people have to be coached through this process to adopt it, to turn up differently, and to promote collaboration.
Yeah, and Paul, you speak of various communities playing a more meaningful role in society, and when it comes to how active citizenship then looks like in South Africa with today's struggles, and particularly looking at municipalities. I mean, we've seen so many protests, taking place in various local municipalities in the country. How should that look like in today?
Well, protests have been part of our community DNA for many years, and we've really seen no fundamental change as a result of that type of action. And I understand the frustrations that communities face when you don't have a responsive local government, and so that is really a default position. But I think in what Kagiso is promoting is that people start burying the hatchet and start working together and find ways to rebuild those relationships that are so important, that will enable trust and commitment to co-creation. Because we also believe that collaboration is also a platform for real creative ideation. And I think one of our problems in South Africa at the moment is the level of our thinking, is because it's very insular. And so the more people we get around the table, we're more likely to come up with solutions that are both creative and impactful and sustainable. And so people need to start shifting to be part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem.
And Paul, I'm sure you have been speaking to people on the ground, and specifically in Makhanda, because that's where your main project took place. And when it comes to the role that young people should play, I mean, in the previous elections, we've seen a major drop in the voting patterns of young people. It's very difficult to get them to go to voting stations, and at the end of the day, for municipalities to function, we also need young people to play some sort of role. What is the appetite looking like from young people, especially with local government, and because this is something that affects them directly?
I think, I suppose if you look at the voter turnout in previous elections, it was quite low. And I think this is an indication that there's general apathy amongst young people to turn out and vote. And people are not exercising that right. And I think it's really the primary and fundamental stepping stone to being an active citizen. And yes, it is only one incident, and we vote people into power, but people don't have the agency to vote people out of power that don't perform. And so we've got to look at different structures, but within communities themselves, and through the dialogues that we've had, the typical question is, I want to get involved, but how do I get involved? So one of the processes in Makhanda is to really help civil society structure themselves better and create a platform where people can start voicing an opinion and start picking issues that are important to them, and building clusters of like-minded people to address those issues. And so in Makhanda, implementing projects like asset-based community development, and capacitating NGOs, and working with youth to give them a voice is really important. And the director of the program director of the Makhanda Circle of Unity is a relatively young person himself. So I think the voice of the youth is really important, because the levels of unemployment and despondency are very high, and we have to address that and give them a platform. We do find that there's energy though, and so we need to harness that energy and point it in the right direction, instead of in the wrong direction, which could lead to many things like substance abuse and hopelessness.
Yeah, and Paul, what else can we expect from Kagiso Trust from here onwards? Which municipalities is on your radar and you want to target and try and help those communities?
I think we're looking to try and impact on a broad base across the country. And so we're looking to partner with other like-minded organizations and government departments like SALGA and COGTA. We're busy working with COGTA on the small town rejuvenation strategy, which really is about creating a community task team and a municipal task team and putting them in the same room to create change in their towns. And that's really important. And that's a pilot site for COGTA, and I think that the intention of that is to take lessons out of all the sites and then adjust the strategy going forward so that it has a smoother and more likely impactful implementation process. But we're also working with SALGA. We want to get to councillors. We've got to change the political culture, because collaboration is really based on the need for two parties to respect each other, and it's very difficult to collaborate with an incompetent partner. So everybody's got to lift their game a little bit and start coming to the table with meaningful intent.
All right then, Paul, thank you so much for your time. That is Paul Smith. He's the head of local government for Kagiso Trust, just giving us his insight there in terms of this initiative that they are spearheading.